Mailbag Monday is here. This is Locked On Brewers, answering all of your questions and maybe a CBA lockout. Don't go anywhere. Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Wisconsin. I am Dominic Petronio. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. This is Locked On Brewers. I am pleased to be joined, as always, by Vinny Rottino, former Brewer, now turned broadcaster. And Vinny, it's been a crazy weekend of sports here in Milwaukee. We had the championship weekend on Sunday with the NFL. You had Torrey Pines on Saturday. The Bucks had a weird weekend. They got smoked last night by the Nuggets, but beat the Knicks on Friday. I mean, there's a lot going on right now.
There is, yeah. I mean, and I love this past weekend with the NFC, AFC championship games. That's probably my favorite sports weekend. But yeah, I mean, tough game by the Bucks. But yeah, let's get into some Milwaukee Brewers mailbag stuff. Obviously, a lot of good questions coming in. I love your $15 challenge. This is one of my favorite things that we've done so far. So let's get to it.
This is a lot to. I'll explain some of the things on that because yes, yours truly did make that graphic.
Yeah.
Thanks for enjoying it too. I think it's a fun exercise, right? Because $15 it doesn't go very far.
No, for sure, $15 does not go very far. And I do want to hear your explanation on a couple of these players that I know that we're going to get into. Namely Ben Sheets. But anyway, I won't spoil anything. I already did, but go ahead.
But it's all good. Hey, we got a few headlines to get to, though, before we get into the $15, is to talk about CBA. There's actually momentum right now, Vinny. Last week, the Players Association and the owners met multiple times. They talked core economics. They talked other things as well, as reported by Evan Drellick and Jeff Passan. This is momentum. This is good things happening, and I want to break it down deeper coming up this week in an episode or maybe a full YouTube bit, but this is good news. I know it doesn't seem like a lot's happening, but this is very, very good news.
Yeah, it seems like they're still far away on the dollar amounts that they're talking about with some of these things, like that player pool for arbitration, pre-arb players, which is a very interesting concept. I think it's a good concept. It sounds like they'll meet somewhere in the middle, but like you said, I'm glad they're at least having a conversation about these things. That provides some hope for us, right? That there is going to be a season and they're not going to eat into the season. Hopefully they don't eat into spring training even, but it sounds like there is some momentum going on with some of these things that they've had a roadblock talking about.
Yeah, and not to put you between a rock and a hard place explaining some of this, but a lot of this kind of talks about what you went through in your career as far as pre-arbitration eligible players, right? In that the Players Association is trying to make sure that the pre-arb players have better access to a more fair system for them to be paid more before they reach arbitration.
Yes. Okay. So this is an interesting thought because I'm not saying this to be self-disparaging in any way. I mean, I'm just being real. Me as a player, I was the guy that would sign the minor league deal every year and then get called up either in September or if they, needed a utility guy coming off the bench. So I was in a little bit different of a spot. And I think players like that do go up and down, haven't established themselves in the big leagues yet. I think the system that's in place currently is an okay system for players like me. I wasn't established. I wasn't a guy that was relied upon and was a surefire major league player. I think what they are probably fighting for is the guys that are surefire major leaguers and they are establishing themselves as big leaguers. And it's a pretty clear-cut answer that they are big leaguers. And those first 3 years, I think they're trying to fight for more money for those guys. And I think that's a good fight.
That's a very good fight indeed. I agree. And that's the player pool. I'll break all of this down here in the future. Good progress happening. We're very excited to see it on the CBA front of things. And there's a couple questions in today's mailbag that certainly pertain to that as well. Before we get to our $15 roster construction of all-time Brewers, we want to tell you about our friends at Built Bar. Built Bar, of course, we've been talking about them the whole show, right? Built Bar is only 130 calories. It's got 4 grams of sugar. It's got 4 net carbs and 17 grams of protein. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate. You can eat something that's healthy and it's actually tasty. It tastes like a candy bar. It may be better than a candy bar. You'll actually want to eat it. Even if you're not a huge fan of working out, maybe you think, oh, protein bars are just for working out. That's not the same. You can at least eat something that gets that sweet treat out of the way with a delicious Built Bar. So you've got so many flavors. You've got coconut almond, peanut butter brownie. You've got raspberry, salted caramel, mint brownie, and more and more and more. You can see their entire lineup at Built.com. They've even got some limited time flavors and some limited time products available there as well. Built.com, and you can use a promo code LOCKED15. Again, that's LOCKED15 to use our promo code and get 15% off at Built.com. Now, get this, Vinny. We also have another sponsor here on Locked On Brewers, thanks to Rock Auto. This episode always, as we jump into things here with Rock Auto, the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, Rock Auto can make sure that you get the parts that you need, not at your local chain store, but online at Rock Auto. You can save time and money online, and you can spend, 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain locally as opposed to Rock Auto. Their prices are reliably low, even for every customer, no matter with a membership or whatever you need. You don't need any extra stuff with Rock Auto. So you can go and explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution for your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, and write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us? So they know that, well, Vinny and I sent you, all right? It's an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. All right, the $15 roster here. This was, okay, let me backtrack here. If you've never done one of these exercises, generally, and I didn't put this in the instructions, I probably should have, what you're supposed to do when you see this grid, you're supposed to pick one from each column. Right, some folks kind of broke the rules on that. I didn't post the rules, so I shouldn't have assumed. But what you do is you get a limited budget. In this case, it was $15, and every player is ranked at a tier of $5, $4, $3, $2, and $1. And you have to pick on this matrix of 25. You have to pick one in each column, so you're making a 5-man core out of the selections from this list. And let's get this out of the way first. The pitching side, maybe it was a little off, maybe it wasn't. Look, I put it up here on the video now, but it's $5 for Corbin Burnes, the reigning NL Cy Young winner. Then you've got $4 for Yovani Gallardo, $3 for Pete Vukovich, and then $2 for Ben Sheets. And Mike Caldwell was $1. Okay, I know Ben Sheets was $2, and a lot of people make it still, but the whole point of this exercise is you're going to have to pick somebody that's $2. I think Ben Sheets is a pretty darn good spot to put at $2.
Yes. The question that I would have is like, okay, so are we assuming best case scenarios with like this player's health? Yeah. And then are we taking kind of their ceilings, which I'm taking Ben Sheets. I actually made two of these. I'm taking Corbin Burnes in one and Ben Sheets in another. But I did want to get your clarification on that for ground rules, Dom.
Yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, for me, it's tough because you have to rank these guys based on their careers. You can't always say what if. And
Right.
then I run into the issue, too. It's like, look, Vukovich won a Cy Young in arguably the most famous season in Brewers history, right? I can't put him, I can't put him less than $3. I know nobody picked him, but Vuk had an amazing season in 82, okay? Like, he needs to be on there. And then
Yeah.
Caldwell started game one of the World Series, right? Like, how am I going to ignore
Yeah.
Caldwell? So it's tough because do I put Vuk at $5 and ignore what Corbin Burnes just did the last 2 years? Do I put Gallardo at $2 and slap, 5 consecutive opening days in the face? And breaking it down, Gallardo and Sheets, almost identical numbers. I know there was a lot more dominance and people remind of the early 2000s with Ben Sheets and like, oh, what could have been if he was healthy the whole time? Their numbers ended up being pretty similar, okay? Yovani finished 86 and 83 with the Brewers. Sheets 89 and 64, albeit a better record. ERA was almost identical, 3.69, 3.72. Sheets had the slight edge there. Their strikeouts per 9, Sheets had the advantage by 1 strikeout, 8.6 to 7.6. But Gallardo had a better whip, 1.2 versus 1.3, a better FIP, 3.65, and only 20 fewer strikeouts than Sheets. Okay, so it wasn't as close as people thought. Was Sheets underpriced? Yes, but hey, this is the part of the exercise.
Right, and the part of the exercise that says that Sheets is worth $2 is because of all the injury stuff. Like on unhealthy Ben Sheets, when his shoulder's jacked up and he's trying to battle through things, and he even said it himself, he couldn't really get the grip of his nasty curveball. I mean, that thing, you could hear it coming in,
Hmm.
right? When it was right, when he was healthy. And in 2004, I'm just looking at the numbers here. I mean, this is an incredible season. This is where he stayed healthy all season long. He was 1.2 walks per nine and 10 strikeouts per nine with 237 innings in a 2.70 ERA, and he almost won the Cy Young. Actually, he finished eighth. I think Pedro won it or something like that. But um, he was incredible. And I think people just go back to, like you said, I think people go back to that year, how dominant he was. I mean, again, that was a curveball you could hear spinning. It was like, zzz, that's how hard the thing was. And then he said he lost the feel for it. His shoulder was like Swiss cheese after that. I mean, I really felt for him as a player, as a person, because he really could have been one of the, I want to say all-time greats, but it's certainly one of the best pitchers of the 2000s, and he really wasn't, because of his injury stuff. So I think that's what people kind of go back to when they think about Ben Sheets.
I agree. The other question I got a lot on this exercise too: why is there two Robin Yount's? First of all, he won an MVP at both positions and almost played the exact same number of games between shortstop and center field. How was I going to pick one position for him at two very different stages of his career? And also, how am I going to put them both at $5 when the other outfielder that's the other all-time outfield great for the Brewers, Ryan Braun, is the all-time home run leader? So I made the executive decision, which I think was an accurate one, to make two Robin Yount's because he won an MVP at both positions.
I have no problem with that, and I was trying to get both Robin Yount's on my roster, but I wasn't able to do it. Was that allowed?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
okay, yeah, because in two different columns, absolutely, yeah. As long as you're under $15, that's the only rule. It sounds like.
Exactly. So I'll go ahead and have you reveal one of your rosters right now. What would you pick on your Make Your Brewers core with a $15 limit?
All right, I'm gonna go with a recency bias, like I said, with Corbin Burns, right? So it's one season really, or 1.5 seasons of dominance, and I think it's gonna continue. That's why I'm going with Corbin Burns. I think he's gonna win multiple Cy Young awards. I mean, this guy is really, really good, obviously, and I think he's gonna stay healthy. And then I'm going Josh Hader. So
wow, $10
Corbin
off the board
right off the bat. Because why? You win World Series with what? Starting pitching and bullpen. So that's my theory there. I'm going to go buy low on Christian Yelich. So if you said Christian Yelich in 2019 was only worth $3, I think people would be like, you're crazy. So there's obviously a buy low. I think Yelich is going to bounce back. And I had a limited budget at that point. So not only have $2 to play with two positions to go with, and so I'm going with Gantner and Thames to round out my roster. So that's what I got. Burns, Hader, Yelich, Gantner, and Thames. Obviously, we're going to be a little bit like the 2021 Brewers, and we're going to be scraping across runs early on in the season until Gantner and Thames really start to heat up.
Well, hey, I mean, Gant's not a bad pick. Nearly 2,000 hits as a Brewer. I mean,
yeah,
on the all-time list as well. I think he's a steal at $1 personally. I like your roster. I like it a lot. We agree on Hader. I did not take Burns on my roster. I actually did fall for it, and I took Sheets as well, even though I put him at $2. Yeah. I put Sheets at $2. I take Sheets. I take Hader. I took actually Gomez here as well for my outfielder. So I've actually saved money in my first handful of picks. So I've got $5 to split between the last two positions. So what I did is I took Cecil Cooper and Eric Thames to close out some serious bop to finish things out for mine. So we agree on Thames as well, but I almost switched things up and took Axford, and so that way I could get Greg Vaughn. I think Greg Vaughn was a sleeper there at $3. Gorman Thomas at $2 is a great value too. I really enjoyed doing this because it's funny. Not many people pick Molitor and Fielder. A lot of people were picking Vaughn or Thomas or Thames. I think part of that too is going from left to right. They realized they're out of money and ended up with those guys.
Yeah, and my goodness, to have Gorman Thomas patrol center field for your team at $2, that is a steal. So I did want to reveal my second roster. I did have Sheets and then K-Rod, because look, if you're not gonna have Hader, I think the rest of those guys, I mean, no disrespect to any of those guys, but they were all really good back end bullpen arms, right? So yeah. I mean, why not just take the cheaper option? I think that David Stearns would be proud of that, right? So trying to find the cheap options to throw in the bullpen to give you impact back there. So I'm going Sheets, K-Rod, and then Yount, patrolling center field. Cecil Cooper, because he had an absolute unbelievable season when he hit like 350 or something insane, like crazy number of extra base hits. So Cooper and then Prince. So again, I do love Prince Fielder. I think he would have been a Hall of Famer if he would have stayed healthy for longer. I know we got some follow-up questions after that Hall of Fame episode about that, but yeah, that's my other roster. So I wanted to do two. Did you do two, Dom?
I only did one, but I like it.
Okay.
And I will say I really enjoyed seeing everyone's reactions to it. This was a lot of fun. Maybe some more, interaction type stuff like this coming up here as we inch closer to the season. I really enjoyed doing it, and thanks for all the response and everybody pitching in and having some fun with it too. And I saw a few picks for Lescano on there too, so I was really making sure that I put Sixto on there, and I was happy that I saw a few picks with Lescano on there at $1.
Yeah, I mean, you can go up and down the decades now that the Brewers have been around, and you can find some really impressive names on those lists, on those rosters. I mean, I think people forget Gary Sheffield was a Brewer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people forget that Pat Listash was the Rookie of the Year for the Milwaukee. I mean, there's a bunch of names that are fun to kind of go back and look at and see what kind of careers they had.
I did have one rule on this. There was no way I was putting CeCe on this for only 2.5 months, because I knew every single person would pick him, no matter what price I put him at. So that was my one
favorite.
Rule. Yes,
he is a fan favorite. He was and still is. And I think he said that Milwaukee was his favorite place ever to play.
I heard him say that recently. Yeah, I got to read his book. I need to dive into that.
I got to tell some fans a funny story. CC Sabathia would show up at TGI Fridays to hang out with Mitch Stetter and me in September of 2009. I'm not kidding. Or was it 2008 when he was it 8 that he? Yeah, 8 that he came over. Sorry, yeah. So that is a true story. Me, Mitch Stetter, and CC Sabathia. I don't know why. Obviously, I think it was a situation where nobody. It was kind of a quiet spot, right? So if he went downtown Milwaukee to hang out with some whoever, I think he would have been mobbed. So he was in the Brookfield TGI Fridays hanging out with Mitch Stetter and I. It was awesome.
That was fun. That sounds like stories to tell for sure. Listening to CC. Mostly CC talking, right? And you guys listening?
Yeah, no, I mean, the guy is as regular as it gets. He is one of the nicest guys I've ever met in the game, and just one of the nicest people I've ever met, period. So he's just a regular dude.
That's
pretty
awesome.
Cool.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah. We're going to get to our mailbag here in just a second, but we're going to tell you now that we are heading into the Super Bowl 2 weeks away. There might be less football being played now, but BetOnline has way more stuff to bet on here in the playoffs, from scores, totals, player performance props, to the next coach being fired, where he's going to land. BetOnline is the number one spot for all things NFL coming up here in 2022. And with the new year comes the new website as well. Sign up today, and you're going to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON, all one word, when you sign up at BetOnline. And it's not just football. Obviously, the big sports betting holiday of the year is coming up in 2 weeks with the Super Bowl. But BetOnline's basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC odds coverage is the best in the business, from sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games. BetOnline is your number one online wagering destination. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games, where the game starts. All right, diving into the mailbag here, Vinny. We are going to one of our frequent listeners. Nick has a couple of questions here, a serious one and a lighthearted one. First off, can CBA, collective bargaining agreement, negotiations, go on for longer than 5 years? Why can't they agree to something longer so we avoid this every 5 years? This is an easy answer because, well, 5 years seems like a good spot. It's listed in the basic agreement that they re-up every 5 years, because if one side feels unhappy in year 2 or year 3, you're going to tell them they have to wait 7 more years to do it. And that, let's say they make it 10 years, or it's meant to make sure things are happy and always fluid. This has been happening since the 60s and the 70s. So it makes sure everybody's happy every 5 years that, hey, is there any changes you wanted, any changes you wanted? And that's how this happens. Not always is there going to be a lockout and a massive negotiation happening every time this comes up.
Dom, I learned things about this. I was part of the players union when I was a player on the 40-man rosters, parts of 5 different seasons in Major League Baseball, and I learned things from you because I actually didn't know that. So that's a good benchmark, or that's a good kind of you know rule to have in place, and that makes sense with what you're saying.
There's a great piece in The Athletic that kind of details why a lot of folks are paying attention to this negotiation, but really should look back to the last negotiation, the first one headed by Tony Clark, of why the players are so unhappy right now. So I would really encourage that. It's a really interesting read of understanding how we got to this point, and even further back to the 2011 negotiations too. On a lighter note, Nick's second question is pertaining to you, Vinny, and I have a quick bone to pick with Nick after I ask this question. He asked, "Hey Vinny, what's your favorite high school baseball moment?" Hey Nick, did I not play high school baseball? Are you assuming things about me? Are you think I'm not athletic? I see what you're saying. You're right. I didn't play varsity baseball. You're absolutely right. So go ahead, Vinny. Tell me what your favorite high school baseball moment was.
My goodness, we won a chance to go to the state tournament my senior year, and we came back on Burlington Catholic Central.
Okay.
We were down by like 5 runs in the bottom of the 7th inning because they only played 7 innings in high school, and we ended up getting a rally going. And in high school and college baseball, there's a lot of chirping going on from the dugout. And remember, we really got into the pitcher's
chirping?
head.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Really got into the pitcher's head, and he started walking guys, and we ended up scoring 6 runs and walking it off to go to the state tournament. But that was my favorite moment. So from high school.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Yes, I did not play varsity baseball. I played freshman baseball. I didn't play really at all. I got asked to lay down bunts. That was my job. I realized really quickly I was not the next Dustin Pedroia, so started broadcasting as a junior. So hey, that's how my baseball experience went in high school. Next question. What was that?
Well, you're a hell of a broadcaster, I got to say, Dom. You really do have a talent for that. So I've never seen you play, so I'm not. Maybe I need to break your swing down.
You're not missing much. You're not missing much. The golf swing's much better.
Your golf swing is so dang athletic. I can't believe your baseball swing's not good. I'm sure it is.
No, it's all good. I was a boring short right, that played second base, center field, and caught every now and then, but everybody else grew and then I didn't. So that's how it worked.
Okay, that makes sense.
The next question comes from Jake, and kind of piggybacking off CBA talks that we had earlier in the episode. When will the lockout end? And on a broader note, what are our favorite jerseys? Which is an answer we've already answered a few mailbags ago. Didn't we both say the pinstripes, or what was your favorite?
I like the powder blues. Did I say pinstripe?
No,
though?
I said pinstripes. You said powder.
Yeah.
I assumed that your favorite was going to be the pinstripes. My favorite's the pinstripes, and yours is the powder blues.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But
So
as
when
for...
is
What's that?
Yeah. So when is the lockout going to end?
I wish I knew, man. I wish I knew.
Yeah.
I would go bet on it right now. However, and when you hear the word core economics, that means the revenue sharing. That means the arbitration. That means the luxury tax, which is maybe the biggest hot button topic. The players want the luxury tax to be higher because that believes that it will incite spending. Whereas, of course, owners don't want the luxury tax to be higher because they fear that it will imbalance the game and they'll have to overpay for guys and things like that. They've tried to lower the salary tax while also having a salary floor, which I don't think is going to happen. But that's the core economics that you hear about all the time, right? And then the other stuff like DH in the National League or pickoff rules or replay challenges, stuff like that, that's non-core economics. That's other labor issues or like travel and chef standards, things like that you don't always hear about. So core economics is good whenever we hear about their negotiating core economics.
I gotta believe that it's gonna end before the season, right? So to answer his question, it's gonna end before the season. It's gotta. The game is gonna shoot itself in the foot, and people are gonna stop going if this goes on into the season. I mean, we've said that a number of times, but what's the other issue? It's the arbitration piece, but it's the tanking. So we got to make sure teams don't tank. So, I mean, I think the Rangers had a payroll of like $15 million at the end of the season last year. It was something so insanely
very low.
And there's part of it though too. Here's the thing, Dom, and I'm gonna go off on a tangent a little bit.
Do
I
it.
think it's important that teams are not incentivized, but are allowed to go ahead and allow players, young players, especially if they're out of a race, and they want to rebuild, allow young players to get playing time. I'm a little bit concerned as to the union if they're going to be like, oh, we need a floor, which again I agree with you, it's not going to happen. Are you going to go ahead and pay a guy that you really don't want on your roster, and then he's
Right.
got to get ABs, right? So and stuff like that. So I don't know. There's a little bit of a tricky balance there. I don't know how you mandate certain guy or certain payrolls have to be
Well,
so high. Yeah.
with the tanking too, the counter to that would be rearranging the way the draft works and make it a lottery process as
Right.
opposed to just automatically, hey, Baltimore, which quite frankly, Baltimore's gonna have the number one pick again next year. I mean,
Right. Right.
it's absolutely disgusting in my opinion that Baltimore can continue to tank like this and do the Astros method. Now, to be fair, the Astros paid it off in year 5. You know, they made it to the playoffs in 2018, or sorry, in 2016, and then won it all in 2017. Say what you want about the 2017 Astros, but they won it all, and then they make it to 3 straight pennants. They did it. So until we see that fruits of that labor from Baltimore, they were going to be the poster child of, hey, we got to tell teams to stop tanking. I mean, the Royals are getting better. The Tigers are going to be a lot better next year. Twins are in a weird spot right now. And you look at the other teams that aren't tanking. No one in the West is going to be tanking in the American League. In the National League, the Diamondbacks have a really, really good farm system coming up here soon.
Right.
They're not truly tanking. They're ready to compete soon. And then the problem is you got the Padres and the Dodgers going at it with who can spend more. And then the Giants surprise everybody this year by winning over 100 games. So who knows? I still think, I agree with you. Get back to the original question. When will the lockout end? I would be looking toward the end of February. I think you hear about a deal being done, 20th to 25th range of February, because that will be a week and a half or so into spring training. Games are supposed to be starting at the end of February for spring training. They don't want to miss too much time. They really don't. And I know 2020, the guys got ready in 3 weeks. They don't want to do that again. So
Right.
I'd be shocked if you miss opening day. I still believe that's not going to happen. But I do think that the owners and the Players Association is realizing they got to get going on this.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think they're going to get going and then end this thing certainly before the season starts, but hopefully sooner than that.
2 more questions here for you on this Mailbag Monday, Vinny. Thanks again for making us your first listen of the day. This question comes from Erica, and this can be just an open-ended question. Don't need to give any hard data with it or anything, but who is the Brewers' competition in both the National League and the American League? So already thinking World Series. I like how you're thinking, Erica. I'll start with the National League. The division is obviously going to be interesting because the Cardinals look just as good, as they did in the second half of the season. I still am worried about their pitching, but the obvious answer in the National League is the New York Mets. It's kind of crazy that it feels so long ago because of the lockout, but they made a flurry of moves right before the lockout. Starling Marte, Mark Canha, Max Scherzer. They are going to be very, very interesting in a very winnable NL East. I know the Braves just won the World Series and all, but they still haven't re-signed Freddie Freeman. They should be just as good next year, but the Mets reloaded. I'd be looking to the Mets in the National League. As far as the American League goes, it's a little more wide open in the American League because I look at a team like the Mariners, who came 1 game out of the playoffs last year, that if they make a splash once the lockout opens, look out. I mean, they just signed Robbie Ray. So I really like what they've got going on. I don't think they'll be the main competition. But the easy answer every year, it seems to be Tampa Bay, but now it seems like they're punting. I think the AL is very, very up for grabs. So I'm going to go actually give a shout out to our good friend Jeff Cirillo and say the Angels are going to be the competition.
Oof.
Because the Angels and the Mariners are going to be a lot of fun to watch in the West next year.
I'm gonna say the Cardinals just because in the National League, just because the Cardinals are a team that just are a thorn in the Brewers' side every single year, and they'll figure something out. Some player will emerge, someone will emerge in their pitching staff, and then they have that murderer's row really in the middle of their
Yeah.
lineup. It's a tough lineup. So I'm gonna say the Cardinals, and then I'm gonna say my goodness pick, I guess the Rays. I'm going to say the Rays in the AL, right? Because they've got a formula to field a really, really good team with a bunch of guys that are out-getters and a bunch of guys that can put a quality at bat together, and they're really, really consistent. They're boring as hell, but they're really, really consistent. So they're consistently good. But I like your takes on the Angels and the Mariners.
And I also forgot to mention the Texas Rangers, which obviously what they did with Simeon and Seager and also John Gray. I mean, the AL West is going to be the wild, wild West next year.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch for sure, especially with some of those teams emerging. Like I said, the Rangers going from a $15 million payroll to over $100 million in a matter of a day. And so that'll be a really fun division to watch.
And a shout out to Wisconsin's own Scott Service, of course, with the Mariners, managing.
That's right.
Them. So
that's right.
Shout out to him. Shout out to Willem Dafoe for saying Bubbler on Saturday Night Live on Saturday too. So that was. I didn't know that Willem Dafoe was from Appleton, by the way. I had no idea until watching his monologue.
I had no idea either, actually. And speaking of Wisconsinites, so at one point in the big leagues, George Williams actually coached UW Lacrosse Eagles my senior year. So George Williams was a catcher for the Oakland A's. Damian Miller was a catcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and Scott Service was a catcher. So all three guys were from a little 30-mile radius in northeast or northwestern Wisconsin, all in the big leagues at the same time catching. So anyway, that's a little tangent,
small world,
but
man.
very small world.
Yeah,
when you mentioned Scott Service, I had to say that.
And tiny tangent off that, because now we have our final question up next. I saw Marcus Howard play last night for the Nuggets. He came in, made it rain, 3 for 3 in threes. Of course, former Golden Eagle with Marquette, back in Fiserv form playing for the Nuggets, visiting in town. He and I are from the same hometown, Chandler, Arizona. So he went to Perry High School. I went to Basha High School. He's doing a lot better than me. Next up, our last question of the day. For now. Last question of the day, Vinny, comes from MVP Nacho. This is a very easy question. What's your favorite food at American Family Field? My answer is quite simply whatever Chef Lauren Rue brings us, because it's always phenomenal. I don't really get to eat concessions, but whatever Chef Lauren brings, it's 10 out of 10 every time.
I agree. I'm always sneaking in there whenever I'm doing the pre-post to make sure that I grab something from whatever he brings in there. It's very interesting to let the listening audience know that whatever team is in town, doesn't he make a pizza?
He makes a specialty for that city. I tell you, the Dodger one was really good. The street taco one, that one stuck with me for a while.
I don't think I had that one, but they're all really, really, really tasty. There was one that had like fish on it, which I wasn't super excited about.
I think that was the Miami one. No, we had sushi for the Miami one, which was crazy. His sous chef is a sushi certification in chef, so he got some. We're spoiled, obviously.
Yeah,
yes,
I got it.
We're grateful. Thank you, Chef Lauren.
Yeah, Chef Lauren is a phenomenal chef, obviously. But the food, the concession that I do love the most is the huge pretzel that you can sleep.
Oh yeah, the Bavarian Beast.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
That's Rock's favorite too.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I actually think I knew that. Yeah.
Get some spicy mustard on there, the beer cheese, get it all going on.
He usually
gotta want baseball season to start.
Yeah, it's got to start pretty soon. It's gonna, right? Positive. Let's manifest it. All right, here we go.
Absolutely. This has been Mailbag Monday. A whole lot of fun to do this, as always, with you, Vinny. We've got a very, very fun interview coming tomorrow. If you want to tell the listeners who we got coming up tomorrow.
We got the one, the only Sophia Minert, Wisconsin's own, Madison's own Sophia Minert. So that was a lot of fun to talk with her.
Absolutely. So she's coming on tomorrow for Interrogation Tuesday. We'll have a CBA episode coming up, and our Throwback Thursday series continues as well. We've got number 6 and number 5 coming up on Thursday. So we're getting closer. It's already the end of January. This is crazy, Vinny. This month flew by, and baseball's going to be here soon. The snow's going to melt soon. I know it is. We're almost there.
It actually is flying by. This winter's flying by. It's already almost February, and so we got really a month left of this. And then it'll creep into March and probably creep into April a little bit, but at least the calendar says March and April. And anyway, so that's your first winter, Dom. I can't wait for you to tell us all about how you experienced your first winter.
Been hanging in there. Yeah. It's been all good.
Good for you.
All good. But thanks so much for listening, everybody. We will see you tomorrow with Sophia Minert. Until then, have a great Monday. Happy birthday, Mom, and we'll see you tomorrow.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.